The natural history use of gimbals drives a lot of our development because they operate in the harshest of conditions and they have really the most stringent criteria of what's successful for them to work. So it drives a lot of our creativity, but what happens is it benefits every other market we serve. So the Gen 2 is basically a refinement of the Gen 1, which had control boards mounted to the camera. The Gen 2, we've miniaturized those boards, relocated them onto the payload. Now we've gone through the development to shrink the boards up, get them back on the payload, and now the camera's free of boards and easy to swap cameras.
I'm John Riley of Out in Space Studios, and I'm an owner and operator of a GSS Cinema Mini. The original gimbal that I worked with was the C520, which was the very first system that they came up with. There's a lot of other gimbals on the market, but that weather seal and the weight capacity of the payloads is such a big advantage with GSS because they've really made all those refinements to make it operate at the highest level with these big cinema cameras and lenses.
Gen 2 system that we're releasing, the customer came to learn about it. I trained them and showed them how everything works and showed them the differences of the older system and the newer system. So there's tuning profiles for the system depending on if you're using it on the ground or in the air. It's really tuning to adjust it to the different mechanical characteristics of what it's mounted to. If you mount it to a very soft mount isolator on a helicopter, if the tuning's too aggressive, the system will go unstable. So really the tuning's there to compensate for other flimsy mounts. We added an encoder to the motor that turns the revolva, so now it's registered. There's 4 filters or 3 filters. Every time you hit the button, the revolva will just register to the next location, much like a broadcast camera.
The gimbal that I just bought is like the latest, greatest, lightweight, can house all sorts of different payloads from a lens as big as the 50 to 1000, and it's this 5-axis gimbal system that you can mount on cars, trucks, boats, helicopters, kind of anything that moves, really.
We actually mounted it with his equipment on his vehicle, and we did some ground tests and did a lot of different stuff to get his hands on the system so he could learn how to use it when it's delivered. There's a lot of moving parts and bits and pieces and things to learn, and it can't be contained in a manual. It has to be taught.
It would take me, 45 minutes or so, kind of minimum, to be able to switch everything over when I went from having a Canon 30-300 to say a much wider 15.5 to 47 lens. It's really expensive to have that downtime in between. So now that time could be less than 10 minutes to go from one lens to another, and that's really exciting and huge. I'm looking to really push the limits in filmmaking with this gimbal. It may not look that different overall. Everything that goes on inside that gimbal it's operating at a super high level and constantly has new features integrated, and it's getting smaller and lighter, and it's really incredible. Working with this team has been really special for me. When I originally went for training 6 years ago and met the GSS family then, I come back now. I've worked with the same people the last 6 years, and that's a really cool thing, to have this long-standing relationship.
With these systems, every sale has a personal connection. And it's cool. That kind of drives you to do well for people. Because there's a personal connection, you feel that personal responsibility to do right by them. And when something goes wrong, there is a genuine concern and care. I mean, you lose sleep over it when somebody's gimbal's broke. Even if it's not broken, you're losing sleep over it, hoping it doesn't break or things like that. When things go right, or when you solve the issue or whatever it is, it's, they know they can count on you.